Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Mike and Jeffrey Unscripted. We are your host. I'm Buckeye Mike, and I'm joined today with the awesome Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports. Today we're going to discuss some sports topics for you guys, and let's get into it. So I want to start with Anthony Davis. He's coming back tonight for the Spurs game. I'm hoping he's in full health. I don't think they'd have him come back unless he was full health. But the main thing with this is, okay, they brought in Rui Hachimura. You've got LeBron, awesome, amazing guy, GOAT, in a lot of people's eyes. And we're at the point we're counting down for him breaking the all-time scoring record. He's only like 177 points away. You've got LeBron, you've got Hachimura, you've got AD coming back, you got Thomas Bryant. You're missing one piece. And if they can figure out the one piece with AD coming back to full health, and we're going to approach this assuming that the team stays healthy, at least to a majority extent, to where, it's not any serious injuries. It's more like tweaks. I rolled my ankle. I don't want to play the rest of the game. I'll be good to go the next game. Or, it could be load management in probably LeBron's case after he breaks the record. Mm-hmm. With Lakers only needing one piece, do you feel that LA can make a run for the title this postseason?
I mean, that's a great question, but to your point about the front court, it's loaded, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's always good to have great players all over the court. I mean, you even have Wenyen Gabriel, who's been playing, fairly well for them in spot minutes. But, I mean, Thomas Bryant is a player that needs to start because his energy just goes through the roof when he's playing 30-plus minutes. That's when he's giving you 25, 30 points. The issue is the defense is, his defense isn't bad, but a lot of the times he does give up way too easy twos for opposing bigs. But I feel if he's off the bench, if he's coming off the bench, his contributions are going to dwindle by a lot. I don't think he's going to be providing what he is currently. I mean, obviously he's not going to be putting up 25 points off the bench, but I just wonder how hard he's going to continue to play, if he's going to continue to play at this high of a level coming off the bench. And then you have Anthony Davis. If he's at the 4, then Thomas Bryant should start at the 5. But they'll probably put Anthony Davis at the 5 because that's where he's been playing the whole entire time. But that's where he's been getting hurt because he's banging down low. And I just don't know if he's capable of taking all those hits. He hasn't been able to stay healthy at the Lakers. When he was at the Pelicans, it was great. He played, he was young, and everything was fine. But since he's been at the Lakers, he's been hurt a lot. And to your point about making a title run, his health is key. You're not going to be able to win a title without him. You have to have him on the floor. He is so important to their team. So It's going to be interesting to see whether they put him at the 4 and put Thomas Bryant at the 5, or whether they return Anthony Davis to the 5. And then LeBron James at his age is still playing fantastic basketball. That's not an issue. He misses a game every now and then for rest and stuff, but that's not really a problem. Especially once Anthony Davis is back. I mean, because they've been able to win a lot of games, this year with just LeBron and Thomas Bryant and a couple other players playing well, and they've been able to get by, but they're going to need Anthony Davis to be healthy. If he's missing time and LeBron's out, then they can't win games. And then with Rui Hachimura, his contributions are kind of like Thomas Bryant. If he's coming off the bench, he's going to only be so valuable because he's only going to be playing so long, because when LeBron plays, he's playing 38, 40 minutes. Unless they want him to play less, play like 28, 30 minutes, and then bring Rui Hachimura off the bench and he plays the other 18. But I don't think you're going to play LeBron only 30 minutes. You could put Hachimura at the 3 or LeBron at the 3, but I think you're kind of front court loaded. I mean, you can play like that in the NBA today, especially when you have guys like Hachimura or Thomas Bryant or even technically LeBron James and Anthony Davis. They can all shoot the ball, so I think it could work, but you'd be front court loaded. But the biggest thing keeping the Lakers from a title run, besides the front court being kind of loaded and you don't really know what to do with it, is the guard play. Guard play is a problem because outside of Russell Westbrook, when he has a good game, which he's still capable of doing, getting triple doubles, their guard play is not great. I mean, you're only getting so much from Troy Brown, Patrick Beverly. I mean, they give you points every now and then, and Beverly is a pest on defense. I mean, that's good, but they need an elite level guard. And if Russell Westbrook cannot get back to that level of putting up 20 points, 10 assists, 10 boards on a regular basis, that's going to keep him from winning a title. They're not going to be able to do it. They need better guard play to win it all. And with a healthy Anthony Davis, LeBron playing the way he is, and they need to figure out the front court rotation so everyone's happy and they can all contribute. Then they could. The only other problem as well is that there's so many teams this year that are elite in the NBA that even with all that, I don't know if the Lakers are elite enough. Like I said, that's why the guard play is important, because you look at all these other teams, the Celtics, and just they have great guard play. I mean, so many teams have great guard play. I mean, the Heat, once they get healthy, they're going to be a lot better. And there's teams out in the West. I mean, still, even though the Warriors are struggling, they're going to come around. There's just a lot of teams that's going to be tough for them to beat if they don't get better guard play.
I mean, to your point, I almost wonder if there's a way that the Lakers could figure out how to mesh having LeBron, AD, Bryant, Hachimura, and whoever is going to be that other piece, that fifth piece, whether it's Westbrook, which he's going for sixth man of the year, which nobody ever thought he would want to. I think he's kind of convinced himself at this point. If you can get those four and a fifth piece to mesh, I think it's possible. The biggest thing for them, besides a heavy front court, like you said, and consistency and all the other things that you mentioned, would be health. To your point, I think I agree with you. I think they should put Bryant at the 5, AD at the 4, because you want him to be healthy for a playoff run. That being said, I would give this about a 10% chance. I know this morning on Undisputed, when they talked about it, Shannon gave it a 5%, which was shocking. But my biggest concern is meshing everyone together. Who's going to be your 5? And health is the biggest thing I look at with it. So with that, I probably give it about a 10% chance. And on top of that, the fact that right now they're at the 13 seed, and to get in the play-in, you got to be 7 to 10. The other thing to look at is the Lakers are about to start a 4-game road game skid. The first game back will be like next Thursday, I think, against Oklahoma City. That'll be a big test. I assume that's going to be the night, right around the night where LeBron breaks the record. It obviously could be sooner with, if he can break out into this averaging 50 points roughly in the next 4 games. I know 2 of the games is Boston and New York, I believe. So, I mean, they're tough, but at the same time, he has basically run over the East. But yes,
I was
Boston's
more
definitely.
talking about for the Lakers to win, it will be tough, not for LeBron to put up points. He's going to do that.
Oh, easily. I mean, he put up 46 last night, and the Lakers lost to the Clippers. And the only reason they lost is the Clippers got ahead by, I think at one point it was like 10 or 12 to nothing. And they got to 20. And then once they got to 20, the lead got smaller, but the lead never really disappeared. Skip mentioned. The Clippers would let it down and then explode to go from like 10 to 20. And it would basically always bounce from 10 to 20 point lead. And, LeBron got started too late. His supporting cast, which was the main thing of why they lost last night, the supporting cast didn't produce what they should have produced. I mean, you lost by like 18, I think. So, it's hard for someone as good as LeBron is at the age LeBron's at. It's hard for someone his age to put up like 60 points in a game, even though he's 14 short last night. But yeah, the last thing on this, I would say, what percentage do you give for this happening for LA to win the title?
I mean, I agree. It's probably around a 5% chance, unless I would give it a higher chance if Anthony Davis can stay healthy. Because, I mean, it's not proven that he can at this point. But if he does and LeBron's healthy, I think it's closer to 10%. And I would say maybe a little bit better than 10% chance if Russell Westbrook starts playing at a higher level that he's capable of. And if somehow the Lakers trade for a solid shooting guard, if they can get a good shooting guard, then I think their chances are higher. But at this point, 5%, because none of that is proven.
Right. Yes, I completely agree. I think you have some of the crazies out there that would probably say what you just said, but be like, oh yeah, if everybody's healthy and they can make the run, it's definitely like 50, 60% chance. No.
No team has that much of a chance.
I mean, the thing too with it is they're on the outside looking in. They're basically starting tonight, coming on off of back-to-back. Well, tonight's the back-to-back. Over the next 4 games, you're going to have to go, as Shannon said, for it to look closer to 10% or better, LA is going to have to go 3-1 or 4-0. They cannot afford to go 2-2, 1-3 in the next 4 games. And you also are going to have to look at the production that you get from AD and LeBron and Hachimura and Bryant and whoever that 5th person is going to be. So something to keep an eye out. We always glance over at the NBA. Go Lakers. Go LeBron. And can't wait to watch you break the record next week. So awesome. All right. So our next one is, I want to talk about Kirk Cousins. Is Kirk Cousins a bust? How can he overcome the hump to get a playoff run? And I'm not saying like he did this year. Congrats. You average to below average QB. You got to the playoffs. I'm talking about get to the playoffs. Make a deep run. Deeper than Dak Prescott. And is Kirk Cousins the reason behind Minnesota's problems? Now, to the last question, he's a problem. He's not the reason. He's not the problem. To our discussion before we started, the defense for Minnesota is a big problem, as you pointed out. Right now, I would almost say that Kirk Cousins is a bust, but he's still young enough to prove otherwise. He really needs a deep run in the playoff. He needs to stay healthy, which I think he usually does for the most part. Right now, I would label him a bust, though, just because he can't prove that, he is a non-bust NFL QB who can be good enough to make somewhat of a deep run. I don't think the possible bust label would be there if Minnesota would have beat New York and made the divisional, but I could be wrong.
Well, the term bust in general is tough, to label because, you have busts that are like Ryan Leaf, or Jamarcus Russell type busts where they were top picks and they absolutely did nothing. And then you have Kirk Cousins as a bust because he hasn't led them far in the playoffs. Kirk Cousins has had a pretty good career. He's obviously way better than the two guys I just mentioned that did not turn out or pan out at all. I think Kirk Cousins is a solid quarterback. When you're saying bust, it's because he's not in that elite level of quarterbacks that can lead a team or even overcome your team playing bad defense to get a victory. That's part of the issue. He's not in the elite level group of quarterbacks, but he's not a bust. He's a solid quarterback that people expect and want more out of because they think he's capable of it. And he hasn't shown it. So I would not label him a bust, but I would not put him in the top half of quarterbacks, or at least the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL until he can lead a team to a deep run or consistently be able to win bigger games. Can he get over the hump for a playoff run? I think he can do it at Minnesota if their defense improves. And to your point about is Kirk Cousins the read by Minnesota's problems, the issue is that you look at the Dallas 49ers game. Brock Purdy did not make any mistakes. And all credit to Brock Purdy for being a rookie quarterback, not making mistakes. But he threw for 200 yards and no touchdowns. And they won the game 19-12. Why? Because the 49ers defense, especially when Pollard went down, shut down the Cowboys. Minnesota lost the game to the Giants 31-24. Kirk Cousins threw for almost 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He didn't make any mistakes. He played a better game than Brock Purdy, but they still lost because Minnesota gave up 4 touchdowns to Daniel Jones, and they made Daniel Jones look like a fantastic quarterback for that one game. Daniel Jones was flawless. He threw for close to 400 yards. He had almost 100 yards rushing. That should not happen. So if you look at it that way, Kirk Cousins is not to blame for this past loss. You could say if Kirk Cousins was an elite quarterback, he could have led them to victory anyway. He didn't, but it's not like he threw 2 picks, like Dak did in this past game, even though one of the picks was not necessarily Dak's fault. And you can maybe make an argument for both, but specifically the tipped one. But still, Kirk Cousins was not the reason they lost. He could have done more to beat the Giants, but their defense has to improve because you cannot give up that many yards to Daniel Jones and the Giants. And I think in general that the Vikings were slightly overrated a little bit because of the fact they won all their games. They literally were 11-0 this season in 1-score games. So they found ways to win, and that's awesome. Credit to finding ways to win, but then you make the playoffs and you're in a 1-score game and you lose. So you won in the regular season, but that one game that matters, you couldn't get it done. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of quarterbacks and teams are remembered for what you do in the playoffs. Because, people think of Matt Ryan differently if he beat the, Patriots with Brady. But you look at Matt Ryan, He didn't really make mistakes in that game necessarily, but their defense just collapsed in the second half and allowed Brady to come back. You have to have both sides of the ball do their job. I mean, if Peyton Manning, when he was with the Broncos, had Minnesota's defense, he's not winning any Super Bowl. He won the Super Bowl because he didn't make mistakes. He led the team, and their defense was elite. You have to win a Super Bowl with elite defense and a good enough offense. I think that's more important. Because even if you have a great offense, you could still lose. I mean, look at the Bills Chiefs. The Bills lost to the Chiefs that 1 year in overtime because they didn't have the ball last. And it's like Josh Allen was bad. I mean, Josh Allen did not play well in this past postseason just now against the Bengals, but in that game against the Chiefs, he was flawless. Still lost the game because he didn't have the ball last. So it literally also has to come down to defense. You have to have a good defense on a team or you're never going to win it when it matters.
Makes sense. I think if proper things are put in place the proper way, he can get over the playoff hump. I think the potential is there for him to get over the hump. Like I said to begin the segment, I don't think he's the only reason or the reason behind Minnesota's problems. They have so many problems. It's like the one song, I forget who sung it. It's probably Ariana Grande. I got 99 problems, but you ain't one. Yeah. Minnesota got 99 problems. Kirk is one, but he's not the one. But there's potential for Kirk to grow, for the organization to grow, and become a playoff contender. I think the difference between Minnesota with Kirk and Minnesota we've seen in the past is that Case Keenum is not Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is not Case Keenum. To Will's point, when I brought up about Minnesota having a deep playoff run, then they ran into Nick Foles' Eagles, is that was with Case Keenum, which surprised me. But I mean, when you have moments like the win over New Orleans in overtime, there's something there. For whatever reason, Minnesota doesn't always want to grab a hold and keep a hold of what they have. For example, it came out earlier today on a different segment of Undisputed that Stephon Diggs had a problem with Kirk Cousins and the way the organization was trending, the direction it was going. And now we look at this today compared to when he left Minnesota to go to Buffalo. It makes me think, okay, Stephon was right. As whiny of a baby like T.O. he is, he was right about Minnesota. It's coming out now, and we can go more in depth maybe next week on it. But it's coming out now, and he's saying same thing about Buffalo. Josh Allen ain't it. Let me go over the sidelines, wave my arms around in front of him, and scream and holler at him. But he ain't it, and something is going to happen in Buffalo. He called it in Minnesota. He's trying to call it in Buffalo. The problem is, and I know it's a little off topic, but the problem is, Stephon, you got to stop running away from the problems. Kirk Cousins is a problem for Minnesota. They either need to try to fix the problem or they need to move on. This is a good class to move on if you want to move on from Kirk Cousins. The problem is, Minnesota, to move on from him, you're either going to have to sign someone in UDFA or you're going to have to trade to move up. I think right now the ball is in Kirk's court. And I think depending on the way Minnesota drafts, if they draft a quarterback, they're looking to give Kirk 1, maybe 2 more years. Have the QB sit behind Kirk, learn from Kirk, and then move on. So I think Kirk really needs to prove himself starting now for next year. If he can prove himself and he can keep his job in Minnesota, I don't think he will eventually be a bust. But if he loses the job in Minnesota and he has to move on to another team, then you're looking at a bust. I mean, yes, he's not having a significant moment, people remember him by, like, oh, Mark Sanchez, buff fumble. You're not having one of those, so thank God for that. But yeah, at this point, like I said, ball's in Kirk Cousins' court. His time to shine and prove us wrong. You have one big playoff win over New Orleans Saints when they still had Drew Brees. You're gonna need more of those. So you're just gonna have to ball out.
Well, I think to your point about the organization, I mean, Minnesota is going to have to understand if they want to win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins that they need a better defense. And we've already stressed that point, 1,000 times. They need a better defense because you cannot win playoff games if your defense is giving up 400 yards to a quarterback that's never done that. It's just not going to happen. So they need a better defense. To your point about drafting a quarterback, I mean, they're not going to get a quarterback in this draft where they're drafting from that's going to be capable of coming right in immediately and, is going to be better than Kirk Cousins. That's why they can't move on from him at this point. Obviously, like you said, Kirk Cousins can play a couple years, more years at Minnesota, and then you have your quarterback in waiting if you draft somebody that's more of a developmental quarterback. But I mean, really, your time to win is now. And even if you don't have Kirk Cousins and you have this new quarterback, a lot of the pieces that you have are going to start aging out, and then they're not going to be good anymore, as good. So it's like you got to win right now. And you're capable of it, but your defense needs to be better. Because to your point, Kirk Cousins did not make any mistakes in the Giants game. He could have done more, but he did not make mistakes. He didn't throw a costly pick. He didn't fumble the football that cost him the game. He didn't do anything wrong. Could have done more, but he didn't do anything wrong, but they just could not stop the Giants. So in this upcoming year, their defense is going to have to do a better job, and Kirk Cousins potentially could improve a little bit on doing more, and I think you have something there. Because everything else is good enough.
I completely agree, 100%. Well, with that being said, I know we usually go for an hour, but we got a late start due to technical difficulties. So that's going to be it for this week. We will see everybody back here next week, and we hope to hear from you guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to our channels. Definitely leave a comment in the comment section below. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Peace.